Welcome. I am Bully, and tonight I'm going to give you a review of the book
Cut my life into pieces. This is my last resort.
Shattered Nation
No breathing. Don't give a fuck if I cut my arm bleeding.
for Werewolf the Apocalypse. Now, for those who don't know, when I do a review of a book, I don't give it a rating or anything like that. Instead, I tell you what the book is, what the intention or the purpose of the book is as well. Then I talk about if I think it accomplished that purpose. And then I go through the whole book. We do a chapter by chapter dive, digging into what's in the book, kind of reviewing all of that. And then if you're still there at the end, that's when I get to rambling. And I just sort of talk about my overall thoughts on it, even though I probably also already gave you my thoughts throughout in this beginning. But you get to hear them again because we yap here. That's what this channel is all about. So what is Shattered Nation? Shattered Nation is a setting book for Werewolf the Apocalypse. This is primarily focused for storytellers to give a lot of additional information, advice, lore, and mechanics to help specifically introduce the concepts of the Geru Nation, or what used to be the Geru Nation. Pretty much if you want to really dive into sort of the politics and culture and interactions between the different Geru, this is the book. Shattered Nation refers to what used to be the Geru Nation, which was sort of the global overarching ruling body of werewolves. And it's not a thing anymore. Well, it didn't work. And someone say it's shattered, and that's what you get to deal with now. Using the book's own words, Shattered Nation is a setting book for Werewolf, detailing the ruins of the Geru Nation and how they could be used concretely in werewolf stories, but it also details opportunities the player's pack have in Geru politics to leverage the renown for power and influence. Shattered Nation lets both players and storytellers explore pack dynamics, including new pack types, take actions as a pack, use, learn, and portray the rights of the Geru. So there's some new rights for you. Run and participate in moots. That's the big one to me. That's like the bulk of this book, and something I really wanted out of the book and got out of the book. How to deal with enemies, and some new lore sheets. Also, in its own words, it comes out and tells us. It's like they know that I'm looking for, hey, what's your purpose? They tell me. The purpose of this book is to help you use Geru society as part of your chronicle. To go to a moot and appeal to the set and other packs for aid against a titanic enemy too big for any individual pack to face alone. Deals with werewolf on werewolf action. Social action, but also sometimes action. Now, does it accomplish that purpose? We'll take it a chunk at a time. So the part about its purpose is to help you use Geru society as part of your chronicle. Yes, it does this very much, especially to go to a mood, appeal to the set, and all that stuff. I think that's the biggest reason to get this book. If you want to run a moot, and this, which is like a important gathering of Geru for all sorts of different cultural reasons or administrative reasons or whatever, it's a big werewolf event. It's important. There's a lot of different parts to it, and there's so much there. And it's a very, really fun part of running Werewolf the Apocalypse, but it can be sort of daunting to just come up with a moot. And this book really nails that part of it. Not only lore-wise and inspiration-wise and giving you like ideas and creative stuff to pull off of, but also a lot of like mechanics and structure if you're someone who like just kind of wants a little bit of a template to use. They do it all. It is an absolute treasure for running a moot. I'm someone who's done this. I ran a multi-day moot in my game, multi-day in-game and multi-session. And I liked it. I think it went well. It was interesting, but it was hard. It took a lot more research and just kind of patching together different things, and also just picking and choosing what works and doesn't work and trying to put it all together into one event that still felt like, a Guru thing, but made sense. And because there wasn't really anything I could take wholesale from the other editions. And this book would have done everything I wanted in one convenient location. I'm glad it's here. I'm glad the rest of you get to enjoy it. I'll certainly be running more moots. I'm certainly going to use a lot of this, but man, I wish I would have had this before. But you know what? Makes me appreciate it all the more now, because I now understand what a pain it could be. A fun pain. That's what we do here. And honestly, who's running a werewolf game without a little moot, or a big moot, or a moot here and there? Couldn't be me. So if you're having a moot, probably going to want this. The book says it's a setting book for Werewolf, detailing the ruins of the Guru Nation. This, I'm going to say it somewhat accomplishes. It's kind of lore light. It doesn't give a ton of concrete details. If you're looking for like, okay, exactly what happened with the Guru Nation, why isn't it around? They do actually touch on that. But the book's sort of scattered with all sorts of different in-universe snippets and pieces and hints at things and little details that there's not like a chapter of here's a timeline of everything that happened and here's everyone's involved and here's where they're at now. Instead, you got to sort of get a feel for the lore. And they really lean into sort of some of the unreliable narrator and muddy timelines that are an in-universe problem for the Guru as well. So if you're looking for a pamphlet on exactly what happened, you're not going to get that. But also, I don't think that's really in the spirit of what they're going for. And they do cover quite a bit. Like I said, it's not just an all one chunk of here's what happened. But if you read the book through, I'm sure I missed some stuff too. They get into a little more than I thought they would, to be honest. But mainly this is for people who are used to some of the old formats and like just here's my chunk of concrete lore. Not so much. If you're someone who really just wants to get a feel for Guru culture and this setting in particular, it's also, I think, does that very well. If you're interested in exploring some of the conflicts of, Guru society and also some of like the traditions and tenets and really kind of get into sort of some of the mysticism or cult and that deals with that, this is a good resource for that. There's lots of stuff to use just for inspiration, as I'm sure most people do when they read stuff like this, but they also just straight up provide a lot of story hooks and a lot of examples of things. That's really nice. I noticed this is a very example heavy or story hook heavy book in a way that some of the other ones aren't. That's incredibly useful for, especially new storytellers, but new and old alike. That it's never of like, okay, here's a concept. Here's a concept and here's a couple examples of it. And here's just some actually exact things you could just take from this book and put in your story, including some mechanics to go with it. So it's all there. Very, very good storyteller resource. Now, if you're strictly a player and you're just looking for a lot more new options for your character, it's here, but I don't think it's necessarily you're going to need this book. There's a good chunk of new rights specifically that I really like. Some lore sheets, but if you're looking for a bunch of like gifts or new backgrounds, merits, flaws, all that stuff, it's pretty light on that. It does have really good guidance for character creation, and specifically pack creation, including just like step-by-step on how to do it, as well as some new options if you want to like pool resources to have like group backgrounds and cairn management and things like that. Also, if you're a player who's just a lore junkie and kind of want to know it all, I think there's plenty of stuff to pick up from here. Or if you really want to play a character who is knowledgeable about what's going on or really understands the culture, you're playing a Galliard or an Elder or something like that. As a player, this could also be pretty useful just to really sort of know the ins and outs of this culture you're in now. Specifically, understand how different and shattered and potentially in conflict it is and localized it is, which is a really interesting thing they did with it. Some new things it introduces mechanically. If you're just someone who's like, all right, what are the new rules or the new things I can do? It introduces options for shared pack backgrounds, cairn building, like I said, new rights. There's a new system of there's a list of like different howls and what they mean. And we'll get to it in the other chapters, but that stuck out to me. It was pretty cool, pretty interesting. And they also have a system for great hunts, and sort of it's a storytelling thing, but your characters, or I guess players, are taking the roles in the heroes and legends and even some antagonists in these stories that are being told, and you actually play them out and potentially affect how they go. And there's different mechanics involved in that. That's pretty interesting. That's sort of something that this book introduces that's not at all in the other one. Think of it a little bit of like a memoriam if you're familiar with Vampire, which they have a book about that coming out soon. Look at them thinking. Overall, I'm very happy with this book, especially as someone who's new to storytelling it and has fully caught the werewolf rot and just it's consuming. I want all things werewolf, and this is good. This is very useful to me, and it's sort of fun taking this journey a little bit. A lot of the vampire stuff, I know too much, so it's hard to imagine like, oh, this would be good for a new storyteller, but it's not necessarily something I need. Now I think I'm more of the target audience for these books, to where I'm both an experienced storyteller, but I mean, I guess we're all new to werewolf lore, 5th edition. So yeah, I'm along for the ride, and I'm loving it. And by along for the ride, I mean I'm driving the bus, and I want everyone on board. And I could drive. We'll be fine. We're going to have fun. Let's go. Okay, we're going to get into the chapter-by-chapter dive. This is primarily a storyteller-focused book, but it's not a chronicle book, so it's not really like spoilers or anything. So usually I try to give a warning for players if this is something that you shouldn't watch. But everyone's welcome. Like I said, we got a full bus. Starts with an introduction chapter. Making the challenge, what it's called. And it just sort of sets the mood a little bit. Which I might have just missed this in some of the other taglines, but it stuck out. It says this is Werewolf is a game of spiritual and environmental horror. Or, Vampires, a game of political and personal horror. So there we go. They might have already said this, and I might have missed it, and I'm sorry, but now I know. They give you a little bit of background info on the whole Shattered Nation thing. King Albrecht was this former leader of the Garou Nation, led this great hunt into the Umbra against the Worm. Things went very bad. There was betrayals. Supposedly the Worm itself made an appearance, and terrible, terrible losses for our Garou. But King Albrecht survived, although actually there's a lore sheet for him. So there you go. But he's not doing great, and he called this big old moot to essentially figure out and nominate a successor to someone to lead the Garou Nation, and didn't go so well. Was challenged by a lot of the other tribes, and especially a lot of the younger werewolves, and long story short, they all said, actually, no one gets to be in charge. Screw this whole thing. I'm going to do my own thing. Except everyone said that. So now there's a bunch of own things, and there's no more nation. This is a book about, it's sort of the old versus young perspectives, disillusionment with the establishment, frustration with change, about trying to pick up the pieces and cobble something together. But the thing you're cobbling together also needs to be capable of saving the entire world against impossible odds. That's the book. That's what the Garou are up against. That sounds like fun. Totally doable. You got this. Much like Vampire the Masquerade 5th edition. This edition, we're seeing a major upheaval in the old systems that were in place, giving a pretty blank slate for newer werewolves players to come in and really carve their own path. It's easier to drop someone in this, and they don't need to know all the lore and all the rules and how things work, because most of that stuff has been blown up. So you get to make your own rules. Then we get into chapter 1, Strength in the Pack. This chapter takes a deep look at the pack, the members within it, and how it fits into the world around it. It also introduces pack creation, allowing troops to further define and customize their pack for their preferred playstyle. So yeah, this chapter gives us rules on pack dynamics, how to make a pack in your session 0, and some options for some new creation options. In the little intro paragraph to this, it also talks about how like every werewolf has an instinct to be in a pack, which I do like that they made that like a mechanical allure thing. So sorry for all you lone wolf types. You got a reason to work together, and it's because you gotta. There's a section on pack dynamics. They break down a pack into 4 basic outlooks that you should consider. And that is how the pack members work with each other, how the pack interacts with the Umbra and its inhabitants, how the pack approaches their friends, loved ones, and acquaintances, and the role the pack plays as part of a sept, which should have belonged to one. And each of these are broken down, and they give sort of examples you can choose if you don't want to sort of just make up your own. Really good guidance. For example, how the pack members work with each other. You could be a family, team of rivals, professionals. How the pack interacts with the Umbra. Some options are cautious, curious, problem solvers. How the pack approaches their friends, loved ones, and acquaintances. They talk about that sort of in relation to the veil, which is, again, I'm going to keep talking about vampires because that's what I do, kind of like their masquerade. The veil lower, the veil parted, or the veil lifted. And then the role the pack plays as part of a sept. Some options could be the linchpin, iconoclasts, or outsiders. Then there's the troop pack system, which is sort of different mechanics or different categories that you can invest dots or XP into that sort of gives a mechanical weight to your territory, your community, and spirit. Territory is the overall health of the area. Dots in this give you bonuses to investigating and searching within your territory or moving from your territory into the Umbra. And there's optional rules for size, if like the size of your territory matters in your game. Community is the connection to the humans and interest in your area. This gives you bonus to social test towards humans. Spirits, similar, but with spirits, your connection to spirits in the Umbra. This gives you bonuses to social test with those. This section also has the pack backgrounds and flaws and some optional changes to apply some of the previous ones to the entire pack, like fame or mask or a spirit pact, how to make that something the whole pack shares. Then there's a pack creation section. They have examples of like you could just pick one of these pack types and it sort of gives you the mechanics that go with it, similar to a predator type where, all right, I'm this predator type. That means I have these skills and these backgrounds. It does that, but for choosing a pack type. They also have a step-by-step way to make a pack yourself. This is start with a concept, form the pack pool, which is your dots that you're going to spend on the different pack elements. The ones we just talked about, territory, community, spirit. Then determine pack elements. This is distributing those dots among territory, community, and spirit for your area. Then there's add pack backgrounds and flaws. And this is, I believe, the first acknowledgement to what I have in my player's guide, link below. But also how it used to be in the old systems where you could take flaws to get additional dots to spend towards merits. They acknowledge that and give that as an option in this. And then last up is personalize. You can name your pack. They've got a little chart with some little lists you can make to come up with a name. Develop storyteller characters attached to your backgrounds, like if you have contacts or enemies and things like that. Advancement once you get there. Spend your XP as a pack if you want pack backgrounds or your different troop elements. Then they also go into the pack types. Like I said, you could just pick one of these and they give you some stats to use. They have activists, avengers, banishers, cairngard, couriers, diplomats, evangelists for Luna, hellraisers, monkey wrenchers, occultists, penitents, reformers, scavengers, veil keepers, and watchers. Then they have pack actions, which this is more for the storyteller and is kind of a nice little sample list of like essentially story hooks or some typical things a pack might get into. For some examples, they have like guard local activists, set up an ambush, kidnap a politician, blow it all up, form an alliance. Each of these sections you can kind of plug into your own games of like missions and things like that. They talk about necessary preparations, possible complications that could come up, and then follow-up actions that would happen after one of these events. This section also has examples of some rites with little in-game excerpts of how some of them are performed, which was interesting, although an odd placement, because I think there's a whole section on rites later. But they're here. Then we get to Chapter 2, Among Wolves. This really gets into the setting and the lore of Geru society. This chapter gives advice on how to sort of flesh that out and how to develop sets and other groups like that, and talks about how, because they're so scattered, they have vastly different, rights and beliefs and customs, and the only way to really know for sure what you're dealing with is to deal with it, to interact with them. This chapter also has a list of potential grievances between groups. I never got the call. I would be so good at just writing grievances. I love grievances, but they got them, and I appreciate that. Oh, this section also is a kind of brutal and funny, typical timeline for a guru's lifespan. As you can see here or here, wherever I put it, highlights for me is say you were changed, you went through your first change to become a guru at 17. By 21, sole survivor of a catastrophic fight, forming another pack. So they just assume at some point, whatever friends you had are all going to die between 17 and 21. Age 35, respected elder. That was unnecessary. Age 40, death at the hands of the enemy. I get that. So yeah, those of you wanting to play Elder Guru, get ready to play your mid-30s werewolf right before their death. And again, kind of brutal, but also funny at first, but really shows like this is Werewolf the Apocalypse. Things are bad. And this is the life you were given, a short one. Probably. This also works with, the setting that the elders typically have to rely on inspiring rather than controlling. There's just not enough time or to micromanage and things like that. They don't really get the age where they're not really in fighting shape, so they get to sort of be sit back and be an administrator. Not in the cards for a lot of werewolves, but this gives lots of leeway for you young packs to forge your own paths, make your own decisions for better or worse. They also have a chart here on if you want to make a more experienced character, how to give the suggested additional XP and backgrounds and things like that. This chapter talks about the unreliable narrators in Geru society, especially how they have very strange timekeeping, along with because the generations are so short, and also a lot of information is gleaned or shared with spirits who have a warped sense of time, if any sense of time at all. So like some ancient legends might have been like 30 years ago. But also some of them are like impossible to really pinpoint on the exact timeline, depending on the details. Also, these are primarily oral traditions and stories passed down, so the details get muddied or new details are added. This chapter talks about the rites and some of these steps that are involved of a typical Geru will go through to join, Geru society. They even have some example paths that a character might go through to become one, and they have in-universe like examples of some of the characters that we see talking in a lot of the little snippets throughout the book. We get to see their origins, which is a kind of cool thing. They talk about Guru communication. This is what I talked about before, the howls. They have a list of 13 different examples of like, this howl sounds kind of like this, and it means like danger. It's something as simple as that to things a little more subtle and complicated. And there's a section that talks about, how some Guru, still communicate with like howls and glyphs and codes and things like that, but how a lot of that's been lost with the younger ones. And again, as someone who's very interested in language and societies and things like that, I don't know, this whole chapter was very interesting to me. There's a section on positions in Guru society. Again, as someone who ran a moot, man, this would have been useful. Would have loved this. I found a lot of these titles and positions in the other books, but man, were some of them convoluted and didn't make a lot of sense, felt unnecessary, or just, I don't know. They did a very good job of cleaning up a lot of the official titles. They kept most of them, changed some, and they just made it cohesive, which is nice. It's not quite like in Vampire, where it's like, oh, this is the prince, the seneschal, primogen. These are sort of roles that one does typically for like the moots, or some of these roles or titles are within a set, but it's not quite as important in day-to-day life. This will really talk about life among humans and humans that are in Guru society. There's some that are aware of werewolves and are brought in, and how they interact with everything. There's some more of these codes are in character sections on different opinions and outlooks on the Shattered Nation. They also expand on touchstones here. And touchstones in Werewolf is interesting to me because I love them in Vampire. But a Guru doesn't necessarily need to be anchored to humanity. I think it makes much more interesting for a character concept and for the game. But also, like, being human isn't really a requirement to save Gaia. So it's something I would encourage. Just, I would maybe not need multiple touchstones like other games suggest. I don't know. Just got me thinking about that more. But this section expands on that a little bit and also gives some sample relationships. And even some sample, like, touchstones, like specific NPCs you can pull for your own characters. There's a section on building a social environment, which kind of gives a little more concrete details on, the numbers and things like that when it comes to, like, a set consists of 5 to 20 members with, the larger side of that verging on instability. Again, I upscale things way too much. My mood had so many more than that. Also talks about geography, the function of the environment, your story, has different examples of like set types, and also example sets, including like their history, their culture, some NPCs in those sets, and some story hooks associated with them as well. Again, they're always throwing these things at you and really giving you things you could just grab and drop in your own games. There's a section on Great Hunts. Great Hunt is essentially this massive campaign that involves a large number of Guru all rallying against a common threat. There's steps on how to run one, including different examples of scenes you might have, different roles your pack can play in this great hunt. And like I said, they keep giving us examples. We're eating good. They give us examples of some famous great hunts, which also is cool lore to have for you. Some of these are ancient and some of these are currently happening. There's chapter 3, Rites of the Moon. This is a chapter that has a bunch of rites. Rites are sort of like, are things that multiple groups could participate in. They're sort of these ceremonies. Some are social, some are sort of more magical in nature that do all sorts of different things. Really reducing it down to the mechanics. There's sort of like a group buffs or things you can do that are I love. One of my favorite parts of Werewolf are the rites and interacting with them. And there's risks involved if you get them wrong, which a lot of the other powers don't necessarily have in the other games. There's already 18 of these in the core book and 5 social rites. Social rites being ones that play a social function rather than a mechanical one. In this book, we get 10 more of the mystical rites and a few more of the social as well. A few samples of ones that I really like. There's Rite of the Born Word. It's essentially like a spirit messenger. Lets a spirit send a message, deliver a message to someone, but normally you'd have to know where that person who's getting the message is. This, you don't have to know. You can just send it to anyone. You can do prank calls with spirits. That's fun. Send messages to your enemies. That's also fun. Maybe not for the spirit, depending on the enemy. There's a Rite of the Broken Sun, which is this punishment rite that essentially cuts off a guru's connection with their spirit side so they can't shift or tap into a lot of supernatural abilities. If you get a brutal outcome on this rite, that guru gets locked into the opposite of their natural form. So if they're born a human, they're now stuck as a wolf and vice versa. Wild. There's the Rite of Moon's Fickle Grace, which is a really fun one. It's essentially luck, though not strictly good luck, as the nature of luck is, where if you get if this rite, if successful, you treat critical wins as 2 additional successes. So a crit is no longer 4, it is now 6 successes. But no dice can be re-rolled. And any failure is now treated as a total failure, which is the worst kind of failure. I see this as a really cool thing to use especially if everyone's like low on willpower, where you're not necessarily going to be getting those rerolls anyway, and you're feeling a little froggy and you want to go for it. I don't know. I like the implications and the real risk reward with this, right? There's Rite of the Sacred Scar, which gives some sort of tattoo or scar or branding or of a glyph that's associated with some sort of specific either feat or tail or something important to that character. And then what this does, it acts as additional renown. So almost like a specialty, to where if you're doing something and that glyph, that word or concept is applicable to what you're doing, you can add some, and your renown's involved, you get to add to it. And this one just has really cool sort of character development and tied into it, as well as pretty useful mechanically. Oh, Rite of the Shared Fury. This is fun. Allows the pack they pool their rage. So everyone, whatever all your rage is at, you put it all in a pile, and then you get to redistribute it. So you can all be even, or someone's really angry, they cannot be angry, and now this person is. I don't know. That's a fun mechanic. And also, what I like about rites, it gets into what I really like about mage, is where like how these happen is very important, and really cool role play opportunities of, because again, these rites are they give you examples of like typically a werewolf will do this or that, but everyone does it different. So yeah, like how do you give your anger to someone? I don't know. It's a lot of cool scenes that can happen with that. And then they give examples on how to use social rites as story hooks, and also how to like incorporate them into like backstories and things like that. There's a section on learning and mastering rites as well. Oh, and in this chapter, they talk about the Forsworn, and an option to play them. Forsworn is basically a guru without a tribe. If you're familiar with the older versions, they called them Ronin, which is stupid. So Forsworn makes more sense. Sounds cooler. Chapter 4, Saga of the Wolf. This is the chapter of moots. Good chapter. Like I mentioned before, a moot is essentially an important gathering of guru where many of their customs are observed. These could be social, these could be like cultural traditions, or these could just be where important decisions are made. Or all of them, often all of them. This is a section that covers a lot of the common roles the guru can fill at the moots, some typical customs and rites that will be performed there, and the mechanics associated with all of them. They have example moots, which, again, examples. We're doing good. They They even have like an example schedule. It's like, all right, you have a multi-day moot. On this day, these events will probably happen. And on this day, these rites usually happen. And obviously you could tweak them as fits with your story. They also have a table of just different stories, like sample stories that different NPCs might tell, which is a really cool way of like on the fly throwing things in, especially for a new storyteller. Because often these are very social gatherings, and telling tales and stories is a big part of Guru culture. So having like a list to pull from that you can tweak to work for your game, or a lot of them you just take wholesales, is really fun. This is where they get to legendary rites, which I mentioned before, which are these like vision quests or reenactments of very important parts in Guru history. And you participate in these, you play these out, you taking the role of the legendary characters in them. They describe it as a playable history minigame. Pretty cool. It's a very immersive way to sort of give weight to the importance of legends and these stories at these events. And of course, they give us some good examples. One of the examples is called The Last Battle. And it describes what happened, where King Albrecht went in to deal with the worm, and it didn't go so well. So that's a really cool thing that you can actually play out in your game and really set this scene and live that lore. And also kind of determine maybe what ended up happening with King Albrecht and the state of things now. Spoiler, he loses, but how? And how badly? So yeah, and then a lot of other, just again, they deal with, the opening ceremony, opening a howl, moots in play. They talk about failed moots that were supposed to be called, or what happens if it doesn't happen, or different things that will ruin a moot. They got it all here. They got moots on moots on moots, and I love it. Chapter 5, Speaking with the Enemy. So this is a chapter that gives sort of the common categories of typical antagonists to the Guru, and also explores sort of the relationships between them. Not like, here's a list of enemies to fight, but here's how these groups interact with each other. This takes a little more of a social stance on, here's not how to fight them, but here's how to maybe trick them or negotiate with them or things like that. Though it's werewolf, so might end up having to bite a lot of them. Remember, this book as a whole is sort of looking at the cultural impact and social interactions. So this chapter also keeps that as the focus. This chapter has a section they talk about how the Guru used to have a much better understanding of the world and the spirit world, and how they interacted with each other, and how the Guru interacted with them, and how a lot of that knowledge is lost, which I think is a really cool thing to lean into. As again, the world is once again the scary, mysterious place in its dying days. You could cope with that. You can make a lot of cool things happen. Knowledge is something you once again have to seek out and find from any elders that happen to still be around, or find these spirits that remember things and have been around, but the connection's been lost for some reason. And then also deciphering it, and just getting the information isn't necessarily correct information. Figuring out who to trust, what to do with it, and just kind of fucking around and finding out yourself. This is the stuff. This is the good stuff. The mystery aspect to it all. Anyway, we'll get into the groups. They have the Estranged. These are other Garu, like the Black Spiral Dancers, the Cult of Fenris, Stargazers. They talk about moon cults here. There's the Lesser Estranged. This is the Forsworn, the Lost Tribes, the Starving Remnants. There's the Hostiles, which are Stolen Moons, Leeches, aka vampires, Hunters, Cultists, Companies. The Spirits, which talks about the social landscape of the spirit wilds. I talk about spirit, like a court of spirits, the bonds and gifts associated with them, and Banes and Fomori. There's other shifters, which I just did a video about other shifters, how to homebrew them in your game. This still treats them as NPCs, so that's still relevant. And also, they only talk about bears and rats, though the core book also has ravens and spiders, I believe. Then we get to the appendix, which is systems. This has new merits and flaws, though not many, I'll say. There's some useful ones to help with rights. This is, if I was disappointed in anything, it would be this a bit. Like there are some pack merits and flaws, but really lacking. Really not many. And actually, I think it's just one merit. Yeah, and that merit gives you like a bonus to hiding within your territory, and then a few flaws. So again, you could turn most merits and flaws to pack merits and flaws, but like for specific ones in this book, just a few. Section also has gifts, and by gifts I mean one, but it's a cool one. It's called the Howl Carries. It's where you howl. It's packed up by mundane wolves, who then travel a little bit, and then they do the howl and repeat till the next sunrise or sunset. It's a cool way to incorporate all the little howls they put in this book. And then they have lore sheets. They have 7 new lore sheets. All of these are characters, like specific guru that your character could be attached to. I'll go through them real quick. There's an activist who is, I believe, just essentially Greta Thunberg. Shout out to Greta. You're a werewolf now. There's an imprisoned hacker who leaks government info, who I guess is kind of Snowden. I think these are all real people. The first one's 1,000% Greta. The others, we'll see. Let's keep going. The Jonas Albrecht. There we go. That's the guy on the cover. Dude with the eye patch. A broken old man in Hirano who he can't shift anymore. Sucks for him. But his lore sheet gives you some mechanics to interact with Hogloss and Hirano. There's Returning Maiden, which I want to know who came up with this idea, because I love this. What a fun concept. It's an astronaut who had her first change while orbiting the moon. So she doesn't have an auspice, because like auspice is the phase of the moon in relation to where you are on Earth at that time. And now she just like travels the world talking about, like preaching about Luna. And she also wants to go back to the moon. She wasn't actually on the moon, so she wants to go there and touch it, get in there. That's fun. I like this. There's Trailblazer, who's managed to become the CEO of a company that is also a Pentex company, or one of the Pentex fronts. And they're kind of like fighting fire with fire, using tech and things like that against the enemy. Someone who apparently the Greta Thunberg character doesn't like. So it's cool that they give you lore sheets, and then also like some of these characters already hate each other. There's Ross the She-Wolf. Leads a pack of coyote wolf hybrids. Carries around an adopted baby. And they change their sex when they shift, which is an interesting concept. There's Impresario, legendary party person, mood organizer. Also, they really hate stolen moons. Oh, and this, I like this. This is useful. There's a Karen sheet and a pack sheet. Nice little way to keep track of your stuff. I love handouts. I love keeping track of things. As someone who cannot do it in real life, truly, it's just a harrowing thing. Significant negative impact on my quality of life. But man, you give me a sheet in a game, you want me to track inventory? Yes. You want me to track rations? Yes. You want me to track how we're spending our XP and base building resource management? Yes. This isn't quite that, but more sheets, I'll take it. That's it. We got through the book. That's Shattered Nation. No breathing. But we're going to take a breath. And this is the part where we talk about my thoughts. Which I gave my thoughts as we went a lot more than I usually do. So I don't know if I have as much to say. Basically, like I said, I'm liking Werewolf in general, and I'm really liking this. The Guru society and culture, and what it shares, and also the localized differences. Like that aspect of it, I really like, and it's really interesting to me. And I think it's fun to incorporate in games. So this book got into a lot of the stuff that I personally like. The next thing I want, which I'm sure will happen, is I want to deep dive into the Umbra and all the weirdness and freaky stuff that happens in there. the other part that really interests me about this game. It's the spiritual, occult side of things. But like I said, I love a moot is a cool. I had a really fun time running a moot in my game, and I did it without this book. And I wish I had this book, and now I have it. And I'm getting ready to do it again. Hey, start playing. I do Werewolf on there. Get in it. You'll see a lot of this stuff there. And if I don't have a game open, that means people beat you to it. But I'd run more Werewolf. I run multiple vampire sessions. Why not run multiple Werewolf sessions? Reach out. Maybe I'll still do it. Something I noticed just from like a book design standpoint that I'm really liking is it's rife with examples. Like just so there's so much in here that as you're reading, you just straight up pull this story hook or pull this NPC or take the mechanics to this thing that they gave an example of. That, again, not at all how I run things as a storyteller. I spend countless hours creating lore and settings from scratch, and I will continue to do that. But man, do I appreciate what they're doing, because I want more people running this, and I think books like this are going to make that a lot more feasible and a lot more alluring. And that's what it needs. So there's a lot to chew. And they're chewing it for us a little bit. They're baby birding us, and that's good. That's very kind of them. I like that. So yeah, more examples, more stuff I could just straight up pull, more mechanics for things, or people are learning the moot stuff, and it's like, okay, there's this right, or there's this contest between these two guru, and how should I run this mechanically? And oh, exactly like this. Beautiful. Done. Good stuff. And again, something I really like about Werewolf is how they get in their own way, like real life. And if they could just fucking figure it out and work against a common enemy and not each other, they could accomplish so much. Those are themes that this book really hammers in an interesting way. And from my experience running this, a lot of the enemies, like once the pack is turned on, are all facing the same bad guy, they fuck it up. It being the bad guy, and also kind of their lives, but usually the bad guy. Like, Gru are strong. They're killers. And this is a whole book about getting all those killers to try to work together in the same room with all different opinions on what they should do. It's a good recipe. Actually, someone who was just mentioning, commenting on something about asking if I'd make a player's guide for Werewolf the Apocalypse. And my initial reaction was, I don't think there's a need for it, because the book has so many, especially gifts and rights. And I feel like most people who are looking for more stuff want like more powers. And Werewolf does a great job of giving us a lot of that. I couldn't even tell you like half the gifts, to be honest, where like in Vampire, I pretty much know them all. But I felt like this with Vampire, and I feel like this even more with Werewolves. Need more backgrounds, need more merits, need more flaws. My favorite things about this system. I feel like I should just do like a generic player thing, player's guide, because most backgrounds, most merits, most flaws can be applied to any of the games. A vampire could take them, a werewolf could take them, a hunter could take them, a mage can take them, and then just have like sections that are specific to those different splats. This is a good idea. Future me, when you're editing this, first of all, you're doing great. Hang in there. I know you hate this. This is the worst part. But do the idea I just said. Do that. Write that down. Write it down. Lock it in. And if you don't, you're gonna forget. And even if you do, you might forget. I'm here for you. So yeah, my recommendation is, especially if you're a storyteller, I can't. This is kind of a must-have, especially if you're gonna run a chronicle, anything more than like a one-shot. You're gonna want this, because I imagine you're gonna have a moot at some point in your game. If you don't have a moot, what are you doing? All right, well, that's it for me. Currently, I'm losing my sight. That's why I'm wearing glasses in this video. I'm losing my mind, and I wish someone would tell me I'm fine. Good night. No, my end of video things will be me going into all the Papa Roach stuff, because this is about to be a Papa Roach channel, new rebrand, where I talk about all the best Papa Roach songs, which are the only two I know, which is Last Resort, Shattered Nation, No Breathing, and of course, Tear My Heart Open, Sew Myself Shut, because my weakness is actually that I care too much. Oh, my scars, they remind me that the past is real. I tear my heart open just to feel. William Shakespeare. Actually, I took that for granted. His name being Papa Roach. That's cool. Papa Roach. And he also doesn't look like Papa Roach. To me, Papa Roach is like, hey, Papa Roach. That dude doesn't look like Papa Roach. But you know what? He is. Because he called it. He got dibs on that. I should change my name. I'm sick of Bully. Can I be Papa something? Is that weird for you all? But not Papa Bully. Papa Goat? No, wait. That sounds like you're shooting a goat. But it kind of sounds like Papa Roach too. Papa Roach, Papa Coach. That's cool. I'm a coach and a dad. Coach Dad, Papa Coach. We'll get into sports. Y'all like fencing? Are there any lyrics I can actually say without getting in trouble for like adulation? No, this guy's he's on a mission. He's cutting his life into pieces. This is his last resort. I can't say any of this. How am I supposed to write Papa Roach references? Yeah, I get this. Nothing's all right. Nothing is fine. I'm running and I'm crying. Two things about me. I'm running and I'm crying. Thing about me, I fucking hate running. Thing about me, I love crying. And I can't go on living this way. According to the bridge of the song. Oh, no, that's the part where it goes, I can't go on living this way. Oh, God. About to be a karaoke channel. All right, everyone knows that, but what do you all know about Scars by Papa Roach? Roach heads are hate me right now because they're like, yeah, those are like the two big ones. Yeah, that's all I know. I'm sorry. But look, I'm drunk and I'm feeling down. Just want to be alone. Frankly, I'm pissed that you came around. Why don't you just go home? Why? Maybe because you've channeled all your pain and I can't help you fix yourself. And you're making me insane. So all I can say is I tear my open. I just want to shut my weakness as I care too much as far as when the past is real. I tear my open just to feel. Dude, actually, I forgot this song starts to slap. When he gets the quick at the end. I can't keep it to sound, but at least I can say I tried. I'm sorry, but I gotta move on with my own life. But I gotta move on with my own life. Damn, Papa, who hurt you? Bro, they're still touring. They're going to be here? Okay, call to action. All the Summon Story people, Story Nation, rise up, march to Missouri. Stand with me on September 24th as we all sing together. Reasonably priced tickets. A rarity this day and age. That's what you should do. Hey, if you're running a Werewolf the Apocalypse game, fucking kill Ticketmaster. Live Nation, Dead Nation. Yo, it's called the Rise of the Roach Tour? What? That's good. This is good. All right, do I actually know more of their songs than I think? Falling Apart. Oh, an album called Fear. Face Everything and Rise. This is Werewolf. Even though someone said, I guess, who is it? Slipknot actually has like songs about Werewolf the Apocalypse. They got to get together with Papa Roach. Papa Roach is writing songs about it without realizing it. Or writing songs for me. Broken Home, me. Born for Greatness? Me. Not listening? Me. Take Me? Me. Swerve? Me. Hollywood Horror? You know that's me. Yeah. I wasn't joking when I said this is a Papa Roach channel. Why are you still watching this? This is private now.